What's going on, everyone? Welcome to week 2 of UGA's Draft League. Last week we managed to stave off the Reggie steal by having some interesting tech on Drake Loke and getting some big chip into it early in the match. Lost game 1, but we were able to bring it back game 2 and 3. This week we're going to be facing off against Jaden and the Perth Centiskorchers. So he has one of the scarier teams in the league right now. Let's take a look at the matchup and see what we want to bring. Alright, so let's look at his team. First thing that jumps out at me is he has really two modes. He has one mode with a rain squad with Politoed, Barraskewda, Noivern, and Metagross. And then he has this other mode with Mimikyu and Metagross and Centiskorch. Centiskorch can absorb some of the fire moves that Metagross might be baiting in. And Mimikyu can set up a Trick Room for Metagross, maybe even proc a weakness policy on it with a Shadow Sneak. It's also got some Trick Room deterrence between Rhydon, and a Thwacky's there for a random scary threat or terrain control. Audino I don't really see coming too much, but it does have a healer ability in case Metagross gets burned, so that's something to keep in mind. Hitmonchan's good for fake out support as well as any fighting type moves going into dark types that could threaten the Metagross as well. It really has a couple offensive threats and everything else is built around it. Kind of similar to my team in a way, but I feel like his is a little bit more fleshed out. Has a couple different modes. So this is very scary. The mode I'm most worried about would be Metagross Mimikyu, in case he goes for Trick Room stuff and sets up Shadow Sneaks to prompt the Metagross. Could be very scary. I don't have the best Trick Room mode, but I do have a couple options. For what I want to bring, I know that Rillaboom has to come for the Rain Core. It doesn't do much into Noivern, but at least it'll be able to take care of Politoed so it can't do Song stuff in the end. And it will take care of Barraskewda. I also know that I want to bring Entei for the possible Metagross. But I am worried a little bit about the weakness policy, Metagross, and Trick Room stuff, so I want to do neutral damage. Entei's good, could get a burn 50% of the time with Sacred Fire, but that's not super consistent. So I want to try to not proc its weakness policy just for a 50% burn chance, you know? So for that, I decided to bring Araquanid. Araquanid's probably going to be the most important part of this team when it comes to the Metagross. For it to have proper coverage, including Protect, it has to run an Ice move, a Rock move, a Ground move, and a Steel move. It can only run 3 of those things, so I'm hoping it's not going to run a Rock move. If it runs Ice, Steel, and Ground, Araquanid resists all 3 of those, and it should be able to do some pretty good damage. We've also going to bring Sigilyph for Reflect and Light Screen support. I'm thinking I'm going to run Tinted Lens for, because as you can see from his type chart, nothing 4 times resists flying, which is super important because I can get pretty good damage off into everything. He can't really switch in, even into Raikou or Metagross that might resist it. They're still going to take neutral damage because of the ability. In addition, there's a couple things that really don't like taking the flying type attacks, such as Centiskorch, so that's going to be very important. I also think I'm going to bring a beat up core just in case with Terrakion and Drakeloak. And finally, we are going to bring, actually that's it. So that's going to be the squad. Let's look at what the team I built. Alright, so starting off the team, we can see that I brought Terrakion with Justified and Lumberry. It's jolly, it's not super fast. I believe it's supposed to outspeed Metagross and maybe Centiskorch. But I wanted it a little bit bulkier, mainly to just coach other things in case for some reason Rillaboom looks really good. Maybe he brought his Rain Core. Rillaboom and Terrakion could be a decent lead. Terrakion to take care of the Noivern, while Rillaboom takes care of the Bearscuda or Politoed. We've also got Araquanid with the Water Bubble ability. This will prevent it from getting burned by Mimikyu, which is going to be very important. And it also has Scald, Hydro Pump, Icy Wind, Protect with the Mystic Water. So with Water Bubble and Rain Up, it's going to do a lot of damage. The Water Bubble doubling its water type attacks, the Mystic Water doing 1.2 times more, and then Max Hydro Pump is going to do a lot of damage while Scald can get the burn. So it'll kind of depend on what the situation needs, but depending on which one I jump between. For maxing, definitely Hydro Pump. And I've also got Icy Wind on there. Does good damage into Noivern if I decide to max. And it gives me a little bit of speed control with Araquanid. Araquanid's pretty slow. It does it's faster than Metagross under Trick Room, but it is slower than Rhydon. Next we've got Rillaboom. I decided to give it the Rost Berry to prevent some burns. Terrakion already had the Lumberry, so I decided to run Rost on Rillaboom. Again, I'm really worried about this Mimikyu. I feel like I'm slightly over-preparing for it, but if he does bring it, I don't want Rillaboom getting burned, so I can't do moves into, like, Darkest Lariat into Metagross. I have Darkest Lariat there in case he starts Max Steel Spiking, get his defense boost. Then I can Darkest Lariat into it and ignore all those boosts completely. I don't want to do like I had week 1 where I have no damage into the steel type, so I was very careful to put that on. We've also got Fake Out just in case something might want to set up, like get a little chip onto the Noivern if it wants to Hurricane me, or Politoed if it tries to Perish Song. I've also got Dracloak. This is really here for 2 reasons. One, it's there just in case things go wrong. If I really need like a Will-O-Wisp where I'm not quite doing enough damage, I can throw off a Helping Hand. I also ran Beat Up on it. Just, I don't really plan on bringing it, but you never know when he might be like leading wrong and he's really susceptible to a Beat Up Terrakion sweep. So it's good to have as an option. Also in Team Preview, he has to respect the fact that he sees a Beat Up Mon with Terrakion, so he has to have that in the back of his mind. Shadow Ball's there just for good damage into everything. Entei is our 5th Mon. I ran Charty Berry onto it. If he is running a rock move onto Metagross, then that would mean that Araquanid is not as good. But that also means that he's not running one of the other moves that I talked about, such as a ground move, an ice move, or a steel move. If he is running a rock move, then Entei can kind of take the place of Araquanid and come in with the Charty Berry. He's probably not going to run rock and ground. So I can bring in Entei, take a rock move, do some good damage back, maybe even get a burn. I also have Stone Edge on there if he decides to bring in Centiskorch to try to take a fire move instead of Metagross. Stone Edge is going to do a lot into Centiskorch, even if it does have a Charty Berry of its own. I have it not super fast. It's actually very defensive. It doesn't have to be very fast. It just has to be faster than the Metagross. So that'll be fine. Siglith is also coming. It's just it's 252 speed, so it's going to be max speed with Timid. I really want to make sure that it outspeeds anything that's coming its way, so I can set up a Reflect or a Tailwind or get some chip damage with an Air Slash. Like I said earlier, with Tinted Lens, there's no switch-ins for Air Slash, so I don't have to run any other coverage moves on this set, which is very nice. And the Light Clay is going to extend our turns, so we can do some good damage for a lot longer. Alright, with that, let's get into Game 1. Alright, so getting into Game 1. From what he brought, we can see that he brought Metagross, Hitmonchan, Noivern, Bearscuda, Rhydon, and Raikou. Immediately, I don't see the Mimikyu, which is a huge relief. Mimikyu just offers a lot of variance between its Trick Room sets or Shadow Sneak into Metagross. Hitmonchan, I'm not too sure what it's here for. Maybe just some good fake out damage and potentially wide or quick guard. I don't think it gets wide guard. I think that's Lee. Bearscuda is threatening, but I have Rillaboom for it. Noivern is also interesting here for maybe Tailwind. Um, Metagross Raikou seems like the scariest threat right now. Bulldoze into a weakness policy. Right now, I'm taking notes at this point in the match, so I actually am not looking at the timer. So I wrote down what we had, and I was trying to like take notes on what he had. So I come back and I see that I only have seconds left. So I start grabbing stuff pretty quickly. So I decided to. I was gonna lead Drakeloak Raikou, but I decided to quickly grab Siglith Entei to deter a Raikou Metagross lead and bring Araquanid and Rillaboom in the back, and I lock in just in time. All right, so getting into the match, I know that I want to lead Siglith and Entei to deter the Metagross lead. I can always set screens with Siglith or Tailwind, depending on what he leads. He leads Barrascuda and Noivern. Now, this is a really good lead on his part. Barrascuda threatens Entei pretty hard, and so does Siglith. And they both outspeed both my Mons, almost guaranteed. In addition, Noivern gets to frisk both my items, so they know that I'm not Sash, and they know I'm Light Clay on Siglith, so they probably think I'm a defensive set. So I immediately know I need to reflect up. I could go for a Will-O-Wisp or something on Barrascuda, but most likely it just tries to knock me out. So I'm actually going to protect here, maybe stall it out, see what it wants to do. If I can get that reflect up, maybe even a light screen, we'll be in a much better place. I decided to go for the reflect first. Obviously, Barrascuda is the threat. Noivern can always Tailwind here. It really doesn't need to. Barrascuda is already going to outspeed pretty much everything. I'm also a little bit scared of Noivern Dracoing into Siglith. I think that's a pretty good chance. He decides to max his Barrascuda here. Yep, Barrascuda. I'm actually okay with this. It tells me two things. One, that it's not choice band, which I was a little bit worried about. And two, it's kind of a waste of his Dynamax. I can always bring out Rillaboom the next turn and do some good damage into it. I just need to be careful of the Noivern. He is going to max Geyser into Entei. I protected, though. It still does a chunk of damage, though. I definitely would have OHKO'd without protecting. So that's good to know. Reflect's going to go up here. It's basically just going to neutralize his rain, the boost he gets from the rain. So I'm still going to get knocked out the next turn. But Siglith at least is a little bit more protected and anything in the back. So now I've got the reflect up. I could just get damage off into something. I'm thinking here, maybe I want to get damage into Barrascuda in case it's sashed or Rindoberry. Could also switch out. I think here definitely the play would be to light screen up. We want to make sure that we stall out his turns. Tailwind's not really going to get as much. Barrascuda is already in Swift Swim, assuming I don't really have any redirection on my team, so there's no reason for him to run Propeller Tail. I decide just to go for the double protect on Entei. It's gonna die anyway. It really can't do any damage. Just might as well go for a double. Maybe I can waste another turn of his max. Entei protects itself. He does Geyser. This time it's into Siglith. It has a reflect up, so it is able to survive. It's not Life Orb either, so it's really not doing a ton of damage. It might be even Adamant, but without Life Orb, without Choice Band, it's gonna be fine. Decide to get a little damage off into Noivern. Siglith is Tinted Lens, so anything that would have switched in would have still taken effective damage, so I wasn't too worried about anything switching. I think the better play would have been to get up a light screen here. I think that would help in the late game from possibly Raikou or Noivern, since I know I only have Rillaboom and Araquanid in the back. You're going to see a lot of misplays this game. This game one was not the best. So yeah, light screen in the back, because the only thing that really threatens Metagross and Araquanid would be the Noivern with a Hurricane in the rain. So getting a light screen up to prevent that would have really helped. Barraskewda takes out Entei, no surprise there. He goes for a Dragon Pulse, most likely doesn't have Draco Meteor at this point, which is good and bad. Gets a crit, doesn't matter. Noivern is Life Orb. I feel like I didn't notice that before that moment for some reason. But we'll bring out Rillaboom and Araquanid now. Yep. At this point, I don't have much damage into the Noivern. It's kind of what the reason the Air Slash was before, but I have Icy Wind on Araquanid for Noivern. Not really to slow it down, but just to get some super effective damage. So I could go for that. Decide to fake out into the Noivern. It's a pretty good idea. We don't want it hurricaning, and Barraskewda can't really do much. Right? Or do I glide here? Should fake out the Noivern and go for an Icy Wind. I decide to... What do I do? So I'm worried about a switch in here. He knows that Noivern's his damage, so he might want to protect that. At this point, I could glide into Barraskewda as well. I go for the max Hailstorm onto Noivern, just trying to KO it. He does decide to swap it out. That was not the smartest move on my part because the switch in was pretty obvious. If I had gone for a Max Geyser, it would have picked up the KO on Noivern anyway. It's already in the rain, and I have Mystic Water. It would have covered for the switch out, and it would have picked up the kill on Noivern. Barraskewda, like I said, not doing anything right now. I really don't have to worry about it. It decides to protect, but that's pretty obvious, and that's fine. In addition, I also get rid of my rain here, which is going to hurt even more. This probably would have been a one-shot onto Metagross. Instead, it does negligible damage. I mean, it's not water bubble boosted, and I don't have the rain anymore. Another reason I decided to make that play was to potentially break a sash onto Barraskewda, but that was also dumb because Grassy Terrain is just going to heal it right back up. Yep. We can also see that the Metagross is faster than our Rillaboom. That's one thing I really like about Rillaboom. It's kind of a unintentional side effect of Grassy Terrain, but you get to see the speed tiers of everything. So there shouldn't be any like big surprises. Decide just to Grassy Glide onto Barraskewda. I'll get to see here if it's Rindo Berry or Satch, which I expect one of the two. And I'm also going to double into the Barraskewda with a Max Geyser. I want my rain back. I know I made a mistake. And it protects me from a Noivern switch in, and it makes sure that if it is Sash, it'll get taken out anyway. Decide to glide. Does turn out to be sashed. The Metagross protected there, which is even better. He does show to be close combat. So now I know he is some kind of water move, close combat. I do get the KO onto Barraskewda. Not a big deal, honestly. It's just kind of checking boxes at this point. It had to go down at some point, so might as well get my rain. I probably would have rathered get damage onto Metagross for the next turn and let Barraskewda stick around. It would have gotten taken out by a Grassy Glide anyway. Now he gets a free switch into Noivern potentially. Yep, he brings back in Noivern, which again threatens both my teams, and I just reset the rain again for him so he can Hurricane once more. He also gets to see my items again, which is super annoying because now at this point he knows all my items, and it's only game one, so I really don't have any information to hide from him there. Having Rost on Rillaboom at this point really doesn't make much sense. I was worried about a possible burn from Mimikyu, but since it's not even here, it's basically a wasted item. Kobo Berry at this point would have been much nicer. Decided to Darkest Lariat into Metagross. I've already lost this. I might as well see if he's weakness policy. Or I go for a protect. That works too. And Geyser wants to Noivern? Yep. Like I said, it would have died from a Max Geyser anyway, so might as well just go for the KO here. I'm thinking maybe in the back he has either has Rhydon or Raikou or Hitmonchan. I don't want it to be Raikou at this point. That would be the next scariest thing. And he does show Rock Slide on Metagross, which is very interesting. I didn't expect him to run Rock Slide. I was kind of prepared for Ice Move, like Stomping Tantrum and Iron Head with Protect. So the fact that he's Rock Slide lets me know that he probably doesn't have any damage into Rillaboom for super effective. Right, so let's see what his last one is. Raikou comes out, which is definitely the scariest thing. Araquanid is naturally very specially defensive, so I feel like I could probably take a Thunderbolt from him, but I'm still a little scared about it. I know that maybe I can get some Grassy Glide off into Raikou, get some damage off on that, and maybe in the late game Rillaboom can 1v1 Metagross. So another misplay here. I'm going to go for a Icy Wind. I know that Metagross outspeeds, and I'm thinking in my head, oh, I'll just Icy Wind so I can outspeed it the next turn with Araquanid. But that makes no sense because he has Clear Body, and I know that right after I clicked this move, I was like, oh, I totally just messed up. He has Clear Body. I'm not going to be able to outspeed it. I think I even EV'd Araquanid to outspeed -1 Metagross, which is even funnier because, like I said, it makes no sense. Gets a crit onto his own Metagross, which is just pretty funny. It's not going to do any damage. But it does show to be weakness policy, which is good to know. And goes for a Rock Slide here, if I remember correct, which is a little risky on his part. If he had gotten a miss... Oh no, he goes for Iron Head. Okay. Does really good damage into a Rillaboom. I missed the Metagross anyway, so it doesn't even matter that I clicked that in the first place. But Hydro Pump probably would have knocked out the Metagross, and I think I would have won at that point. So really threw game one there. Yeah, I'd like to run that calc, but I'm almost positive Hydro Pump in the rain with Water Bubble and Mystic Water would have just done the job. So now I know I throw. I'm just gonna attack into Raikou. Might as well. And I will go for the Hydro Pump here, recognizing my misplay. Maybe he, for some reason, just attacks into Rillaboom, and I'd be able to pick up the KO. It does Rock Slide, and it does connect on both. So in this case, he got really lucky that they both connected. Or it didn't miss onto Araquanid. If it had missed in that case, game one would have been lost, but he got in that case. Rillaboom gets a little health back. Flex gone. I mean, I know he's faster than me. My only hope is that he, for some reason, clicks Rock Slide and misses. The chances of that happening is 0 to none. Darkest Lariat might kill at this point. He doesn't seem to be super bulky. Worth a shot, so I might as well go for it. If I die here, I don't reveal that information anyway, so I'm fine going for it. Any Iron Heads, and that's the end of game one. So definitely threw that one with Icy Winding with Araquanid instead of just Hydro Pumping. Scald might have done it too, but who knows. Alright, so getting into game two. I knew I rushed my leads last time, so I wanted to do something that can cover for the Bearscuda Noivern lead this time, since it was such a good lead into me. But I also wanted to have something that I could use in case he goes Metagross Raikou. So I decided to lead off with Sigilyph and Rillaboom and bring Araquanid and Entei in the back. Since he revealed to be Rock Slide on Metagross, I know that Entei can live it should be able to live even a +2 Rockfall from Metagross, especially since it shows to be a little bit bulkier. and I can get some really good damage off into into the Metagross in return. Arachnid also seems like it has really good damage. It would have won the last game if I had clicked the right move, but I decided to have a brain fart at that point and makes a lot of misplays last game. So I knew I had the right tools. I just have to get them in the right order and pull my head out of my ass. So that's what I'm thinking going into it. I'm like, okay, I know I need to take this a little bit slower, click the right moves, really think about things, not try to icy wind a clear body mon, stuff like that. So I feel pretty good about this lead. I take a second to here to really think about it. Again, I don't want to make any more misplays. I know it's going to cost me if I keep playing like that. It's not good Pokemon. All right, getting into it. We're expecting to see another Noivern Bearscuda lead. It was so good into me. He has really no reason to change it. All right. Very cool trainer card. Decides to lead Metagross Raikou this time, which I'm actually okay with. Siglith can get up a Reflect before the Metagross can attack to deter some of the damage. And if Raikou decides to Thunderbolt into Siglith, then Rillaboom can pick up a 2-hit KO, so I'm okay with that. Decide to Reflect here, and I actually, just after I got done talking to myself, like, hey, you really gotta stop making dumb moves, I decided to fake out the Inner Focus Bond. Of course he's Inner Focus, he has shown not to be pressure, made no sense, but I decided to do it anyway. Why not waste a move, this is especially important because Grassy Glide is a 2-hit KO onto Raikou, so if I'd gone for a Grassy Glide here, and then I could have easily KO'd it the next turn. But we decided to throw away our turn. Why not? Does Dynamax or Raikou, or excuse me, he Dynamaxes Metagross. Raikou could easily go for a Bulldoze here. Fakes it out. Does go for the Bulldoze, doesn't affect Siglith, gonna get a little chip onto Rillaboom. And it's gonna proc Metagross' weakness policy. So Metagross is activated, has the 2x boost. We will get up the Reflect here with Siglith, and I do have the Light Clay, so even if Siglith goes down here, I'm okay with that, because we have 7 more turns to take use of this Reflect, which is going to be a big deal. Rockfall comes out. It is going to be into Siglith this time, which is going to KO even through Reflect. So I know he still has some pretty good damage, but at least I got that Reflect up, and I get a free switch in to something else. Get to see the speed tiers. No surprise, Raikou is faster than Rillaboom, and the sand is mitigated by the grassy terrain, which is okay. Decided to bring in Entei here. He's already maxed maxed Metagross and proc the weakness policy, so I really have no reason not to Dynamax and get some damage off into it. Decide to protect here though, because I want to get some Grassy Glide chip onto Raikou. Like I said, I know I messed up by faking out last time. Had I gone for another Grassy Glide, this would have been a potential KO onto Raikou, and I wouldn't have had to worry about it. But instead, I have to waste a turn of my max. Raikou could go for another Bulldoze here to lower the speed of Entei and possibly have it underspeed Metagross. I'm guessing that he has Metagross EV to outspeed -1 Terrakion. I believe it can hit that speed tier, which would make sense. It's not doing a ton of damage, so I'm guessing it's like mostly almost max speed and max HP or max defense maybe. I'm going to guard here so I can waste that turn. Grassy Glide comes out. Again, it does a good, at least 50, maybe 60%. He does go for the Bulldoze, which is fine. He's only getting more damage off into his own Metagross. It really is a null turn. Rillaboom's already underspeeding anything anyway. Rockfall does go into Entei, which is totally fine by me. I know that Raikou will go down the next turn. He could switch it out, but at least he's not bulldozing then. Since I have the Reflect up too, this next turn I don't have to flare into Metagross. If I want, I could target into the Raikou slot since a Grassy Glide's going to pick it up anyway. I decide just to I think about Darkest Layering here. He's most likely going to switch out, but I decide not to. I think if I had done this again, a better play would have been to glide into Raikou and flare into Raikou. It would have covered for any switch in he would have made, really. Yep. And I know I'm going to live one with the Metagross anyway, so I could have. And this is his last turn of max, too, so I would have gotten a little bit of Glide Chip and a little bit of Flare Chip into the Noivern, and then I would have been able to pick up the KO onto Metagross the next time with Max Flare. Instead, I do a good 60% and set up the Sun. He is going to Steel Spike here into the Rillaboom, which is fine by me. He doesn't even pick up the KO. He gets a defense boost, but that's only going to be mitigated by the Sun. So I know I'm going to be doing another 60% anyway. Rillaboom holds on, but just the tiniest bit. Because he hasn't procced the Charty Berry onto Entei, I feel fine rock falling into the Noivern and protecting Rillaboom. I get to save Rillaboom and get some good chip onto Noivern. If he brings back out Raikou, that's going to die. Metagross going for a Rock Slide would be totally fine. He's only going to proc my berry. Does decide to withdraw Metagross, which is even better for me. Bring back out Barraskewda. Totally fine. He was most likely predicting of Max Flare, but I didn't have to make that call. Just going to protect here. This is even better because I can Grassy Glide into the Barraskewda next time. And the Sand from Rockfall I know was going to pick up that kill anyway. Rockfall comes out. Doesn't quite kill the Noivern, but I feel pretty good that Grassy Glide will the next turn. I have the Reflect up as well. I know this Barraskewda is not the strongest. Yeah, especially after the Sand Chip. I know that Noivern's in range of Grassy Glide. Rillaboom still barely holding on. This would be a good point for Barraskewda to go for Aqua Jet if it has it onto the Rillaboom, since it knows that Grassy Glide can probably KO Noivern. So I am wondering that. They don't usually run Aqua Jet, but he knows I have Rillaboom, so it might not be a bad idea on his part to run Aqua Jet. So I decide to Sacred Fire. I should Sacred Fire into Barraskewda, potentially getting a. If I got the burn, that would even be better. Probably wouldn't kill, but it would mitigate the damage as well as break the weakness or break the Focus Dash. Decides to protect Barraskewda, even better for me. Free kill onto Noivern. Sacred Fire doesn't go anywhere. Get a little bit of get to see the speed tiers. Obviously, Barraskewda is faster than Entei, which is good to know. Still have the Reflective at this point, so I feel fine if Barraskewda goes for a Liquidation. Again, it's not Life Orb, it's not Choice Band, so it's really not going to do a ton of damage. And Entei is pretty bulky anyway. Brings back out Raikou. I know here I can just go for a Grassy Glide onto Raikou, pick up that KO, and break the Sash onto Barraskewda. Since Raikou is probably faster than Entei anyway, Entei isn't really EV to be fast. It's actually pretty bulky. Oh, I decided to switch out Rillaboom into Araquanid here. The reason I do that is because I know that Barraskewda is going to lose its sash anyway. So I can bring back out Rillaboom and go for a Grassy Glide onto it. And I get the terrain back. Do get a defense drop onto Entei, which is unfortunate. Sacred Fire into Raikou. At this point, I feel pretty good. Yep, there goes Barraskewda's Sash. And he's going to bring back out the Metagross here. All I need at this point is to sack Araquanid, and I can bring back out Rillaboom and go for a Grassy Glide onto Barraskewda. The only thing I'm worried about at this point is that he doesn't have Aqua Jet, but if he had that, I feel like his play would have gone to go for it earlier instead of protecting. So I can just protect Entei. Basically no drawback to it. And might as well Scald into Metagross. No reason not to. If he goes for an Iron Head or goes for a Rock Slide and misses, then it would probably pick up the KO and I'd win right there. But at this point, I really just want Araquanid dead. I'm just trying to sack it. So I can bring out Rillaboom. And I should be a guaranteed win. If he protects either of them, then I can just double into it the next turn. He would need me to miss Sacred Fire is basically his only out at this point. Does show Drill Run on Barraskewda, which is super interesting. I'm not too sure why he showed me that, but he goes for the Rock Slide, and he actually misses onto Araquanid, which should just seal the game right there. I know he was pretty disappointed about that. I want to make him feel a little bit better. I don't think it mattered unless he had Aqua Jet onto Barraskewda. His Sash was already broken, so I could just bring out Rillaboom this next turn and get a double KO. But it was still a good game nonetheless. At this point, again, I just needed to bring in Rillaboom somehow, so I can go for another Sacred Fire. Yeah, there's really no way for him to win it. He'd have to, no, because anything he kills, I'll just bring out Rillaboom. He can still get a kill here, but Scald or Sacred Fire should be able to pick up the KO. Entei goes down. Araquanid can finish it off and get another kill. Oh, never mind. Didn't do quite enough, but it did get the burn. In case it wasn't going to kill before, now Rillaboom can bring it in and go for another Grassy Glide. It was super important that I saved Rillaboom earlier, even though it meant Araquanid taking a Thunderbolt to the face. It was still worth it because Rillaboom can come back in and get a little bit more damage. If I had kept it in, I wouldn't have had Grassy Glide priority. I would have gotten KO'd. Also, my Joy-Con was drifting a lot during this match, so if you see me like jumping around, it's because I'm trying to get control of my joystick. I was really worried that I was going to misclick moves or targets or something, because I've been known to do that. I think I even left a game once because my Joy-Con drifted so much. Managed to pick up that game, and we'll go on to game 3. Alright, so we survived to go on to game 3. In the last game, Siglith's reflects were very important, so if I can get another reflect and or light screen up, we'll be in a much better place going into the Metagross. I know that Rillaboom is also pretty important to prevent Barraskewda from going crazy. I liked everything I had last time. Dracloak really doesn't do much. I have a very passive set, and it has weakness policy, it has Will-O-Wisp to deter the weakness policy, but really doesn't have much damage otherwise. Tracheon loses to pretty much everything on his team, so there's really no reason to bring that as well. So I go with the 4 I had before. Lock in pretty fast this time. I'm pretty confident that I have the tools, I just need to execute it properly this time. He takes his time a little bit more. He definitely has, if he uses the Noivern a little bit better, it could be scary. It does good damage into pretty much everything in my team. Max Dragon hurts Entei by lowering its attack. Airstream does good damage into Araquanid and Rillaboom. Alright, so let's see his leads. So he goes with the same leads as game one. Not very surprising. He won that game, so he figured it's pretty good for him. I lead Siglith Rillaboom this time instead of game one, where I would lead Entei Siglith. He gets to see my Rostberry and Light Clay again, but he already knew it was there, so nothing new there. We know that the Barraskewda has Focus Sash, and Noivern has Life Orb, so not much information we need to get from there. I know that I really want the Reflect Up right now, so I think that's the best play, especially if Barraskewda is going to max again. With Rillaboom on the field, I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't. Could protect here is very likely. Getting a Light Scream up after this would be very nice. Barraskewda is also pretty frail, so if I can Air Slash into it, I can break its sash decently easy. Decides to max. Turns out he's maxing Noivern, which is, it's alright. Rillaboom is now useless, more or less, except for into Barraskewda. I decided to go for kind of a crazy turn where I Grassy Glided into Barraskewda. Probably should have. I thought about protecting there just to get a feel for like what was going on. It was pretty likely that Barraskewda protected, but I decided to go for the aggressive play and actually Grassy Glide into Barraskewda anyway. In addition, if he had Max Geysered into Siglith, I believe it would have been a one-hit KO based on the damage from turn 1 of game 1. So that's okay. Rillaboom goes down, but honestly, it wasn't going to do too much. Like I said, Barraskewda is pretty frail anyway. Araquanid resists most of its attacks. Actually, all of its attacks it's shown so far. All of its attacks, because it's shown Close Combat, Drill Run, Liquidation. So Araquanid can come in. Get the Reflect up, so now it's doing even less. I know I want to max Araquanid this game. It's just a question of if I Hailstorm into Noivern, which would do pretty good damage. It wouldn't pick up a KO, but it would do good damage. Or do I want to set up the rain for myself? It would give Barraskewda a Swift Swim, though. Decide to go for the Light Screen. This will help any max Airstreams going into Araquanid from Noivern. Araquanid's already pretty specially defensive naturally, but this would help it even more. Raikou comes out instead of Barraskewda. Not too sure why, maybe just figured that Raikou does good damage into Araquanid and Siglith. Max our Araquanid. Barraskewda really wasn't doing much in that situation, I guess, anyway. He could be liquidating into Siglith, though. Decides to max guard the Noivern, which is fine. He knows I have max Hailstorm. I just max guard myself. I wanted to get a feel for what he was doing, and this gives me an opportunity to get my Light Screen up. Now that he's max guard, I know that I'm free to Hailstorm, or I can Geyser into the Raikou. Raikou at this point, he's going to throw off some Thunderbolts, but it doesn't do too much compared to Noivern. We saw that damage from turn 2 or game 2, and it did about 40 or 60%. I can't remember which way it was. I'm going to set up a Tailwind here. Siglith isn't doing much at this point, but I know that if I get a Tailwind up, it'll help me later on. Probably won't outspeed, especially not after a Airstream, but you never know. It might be good. So Raikou's even faster now. Thunderbolt. So it takes me down to about 35%. Siglet does a Tailwind. Again, I know that I might be faster than the Raikou because at, let's see, at 2 times speed, I'm max speed, so assuming Raikou is also max speed, I should still be faster, but it'd be pretty close. Max Geyser almost takes out Raikou, but not quite. But assuming Siglith is faster now, we can air slash into it using our Tinted Lens and pick up the KO. Without Tinted Lens, I don't think this would have been a kill. I can max Hailstorm into Noivern now that it's max is over, and I actually go for an air slash here. All right, so let's see how this damage goes. A Hailstorm should pick up the damage onto Noivern. It's also going to break. Yep, I knew I should survive that. It's a little bit less than max Airstream, so I knew that. I think that's even a high roll, maybe. A Tinted Lens air slash does pick up the K onto Raikou, and we know Hailstorm is going to pick up the KO onto Noivern. It's also going to be good for later on, so I can break Barraskewda's Sash. Now that air slash kill onto Raikou was really surprising. We hadn't seen Raikou's item at the time throughout all these matches. This whole time I had assumed it was Shukaberry, mainly because I could have Earthquaked into it with really any of my mons. Raquanid also goes down to Hail, it's good to mention. But that's okay, it gives me a free switch into something. With Raikou dead, I'm not too worried about Metagross because it can't get its weakness policy set up without me activating it. Anyway, going back to Raikou, we hadn't seen his item since now, and I hadn't really thought about it, but it turns out it was actually Choice Scarfed. Since it never did any moves out of turn or never got any recovery that I didn't expect, Raikou's already pretty fast, so I kind of expected it to be faster than anything anyway. I didn't expect it to be Choice Scarf, so I wasn't really looking for that. So the fact that Siglith outsped it after it was boosted to +1 with Choice Scarf, and we had only Tailwind, it was really surprising. It must have been pretty bulky, or not max speed. Probably was just enough to outspeed Terrakion, so we got very lucky in that. Here I can, I just really want to get rid of the Barraskewda. Metagross could Rock Slide, but we have the Reflect Up still, and Entei has its Shardy Berry still intact. So not too worried. Once Barraskewda is gone, then we can just Sacred Fire into the Metagross and do some good damage. And since we have the Tailwind up, we are faster than the Barraskewda still, and we pick up the KO. Metagross does go for Rock Slide, procs Entei's Shardy Berry, and does some pretty good damage. Nothing too crazy. You can tell it really needs the weakness policy to do anything. I think this is a bulkier Metagross, so it makes sense. Get a little bit more recovery, let the Hail and Grassy Terrain do its thing. One other nice thing about Hail and Grassy Terrain and all that is it gives you a little extra time to think between turns. Usually, if you don't have those extra animations after the turns and stuff, it can go pretty fast. But the fact that you have Rillaboom's Grassy Terrain actually kind of helps. You know, any little advantage you could get. I see that I have one more turn of Tailwind, so I'm just thinking now, like, if he protects here, yeah, he could stall out my Tailwind, but we're already going to be faster anyway with Entei, so I don't have to worry too much. So I just go for a max, or I just go for Sacred Fire and an Airstream. This Siglet set was actually probably the MVP of the match. We get the flinch onto Metagross, which is a little unfortunate, but I don't think it mattered at the end of the day. This Siglet set was super important because the screens helped us live so much, especially Weakness Policy Metagross, and later on it would be the Noivern using max Airstreams. Also, with Tinted Lens, Air Slash was the only move we needed onto anything. Since nothing resists flying, we can just spam Air Slash and have no resist. I decide to Will-O-Wisp Metagross. I don't want it getting like a crit rock slide after its weakness policy has been procced, so I decide to play it safe. And Air Slash is just going to do consistent damage without proccing the weakness policy. That was really the whole point of this whole team build, right? We had Araquanid to do really strong neutral damage into Metagross without it being able to do much back. And by doing that, we couldn't proc a weakness policy on it. At this point, we've pretty much revealed our whole set. Nothing else to do. Jaden played pretty good despite some bad RNG on his part. I still don't think Game 2 mattered too much. We knew he didn't have Aqua Jet by the end. So we knew that Game 2 was pretty much sealed even without the Rock Slide miss. Still, it was a really good game on his part. It was super fun. Alright guys, come back next week where we fight KJ and his crazy prankster team. He has like 3 prankster mons, I think, so it should be quite interesting.